A joke turned into a vow. Now an alien Empress thinks I'm her fated mate asterisk. The joke that started everything. Jake Morrison had always been the kind of guy who used humor to deflect from life's disappointments. At 28, he was working a dead-end job at Henderson's Electronics Repair, living in a cramped apartment above Mrs. Kowalski's bakery, and nursing a broken heart from his recent breakup with his college girlfriend, Rachel. The evening of March 15th started like any other. Jake sat on his fire escape, sharing a pizza with his best friend Tommy Chen, watching the city lights twinkle below. Tommy was going through his own romantic troubles, having been ghosted by someone he'd met on a dating app. "You know what, Tommy?" Jake said, taking a long swig of his beer. "I'm done with Earth women. They're all crazy, demanding, and impossible to understand." Tommy laughed bitterly. "Tell me about it. Rachel wanted you to read her mind, and Stephanie wanted me to change everything about myself." "That's it," Jake declared, standing up dramatically and raising his beer bottle toward the star-filled sky. "I'm officially putting myself on the cosmic dating market. Any alien Empress out there looking for a fated mate, I'm your guy. Jake Morrison, solemnly swear to be the perfect boyfriend to any extraterrestrial royalty who wants me." The declaration felt good, cathartic even. Tommy burst into laughter, nearly spilling his beer. "Dude, you're insane. What if some alien actually hears you? Then she'd be lucky to have me." Jake grinned, embellishing his performance. "I promise to love, honor, and cherish any alien Empress who claims me. I'll learn her customs, adapt to her world, and be the most devoted human mate in the galaxy." Unknown to both friends, Jake's words were being monitored by an advanced scanning array belonging to the Zephyrian Empire, a powerful interstellar civilization that had been observing Earth. For decades, the Empire's AI systems were programmed to detect and analyze any mentions of their species or references to interstellar relationships. 3 days later, Jake's mundane life took an extraordinary turn. He was elbow-deep in repairing a vintage television when his shop's front door chimed. Looking up, he expected to see Mrs. Patterson coming to collect her ancient radio. Instead, he found himself face to face with the most beautiful woman he'd ever seen. She stood nearly 6 feet tall, with luminescent silver hair that seemed to shimmer with its own light. Her skin had a subtle pearl-like quality, and her eyes were the deepest violet he'd ever witnessed. She wore what appeared to be an elegant metallic gown that seemed to shift and flow like liquid mercury. "Are you Jake Morrison?" she asked, her voice carrying a melodic quality that made his heart skip. Yeah," he managed, suddenly very aware of his grease-stained work shirt and messy hair. "Can I help you? I am Empress Zara of the Zephyrian Empire," she announced with regal confidence. "I have traveled across the stars to claim my fated mate." Jake blinked slowly, certain he was having some kind of breakdown. "I'm sorry. What? 3 rotations ago, your words reached our monitoring systems. You made a sacred vow, offering yourself as a mate to any alien Empress who would have you. I have come to accept your proposal." The screwdriver fell from Jake's nerveless fingers, clattering onto the workbench. That was just a joke. I was drunk and bitter about my ex-girlfriend." Empress Zara's expression grew serious, almost hurt. In Zephyrian culture, a public declaration of mate-seeking is considered sacred and binding. You specified very particular terms: love, honor, cherish, adaptation to my world, and complete devotion. These are the exact requirements of our traditional mating ceremonies. Jake felt the blood drain from his face. "You're serious? You're actually an alien Empress, and you think I'm your fated mate because of something I shouted at the sky while drunk?" "Precisely," she said, stepping closer with a smile that made his knees weak. "And I must say, you're far more handsome than your species average, according to our research." Jake Morrison's ordinary life had just become anything but ordinary. Cultural misunderstandings and growing attraction. Jock spent the next hour explaining Earth customs to Empress Zara while she examined every piece of electronics in his shop with fascination. Her technological curiosity was endearing, especially when she marveled at his primitive yet ingenious repair techniques. "So you're telling me," Jake said, trying to wrap his head around the situation, "that your entire empire heard my drunken rambling and you decided I was marriage material?" not the entire empire, Zara corrected, delicately touching a broken radio. Only our compatibility council. They analyze potential mates based on specific criteria: sincerity of intent, willingness to adapt, and emotional availability. Your declaration scored exceptionally high. But I was joking, were you? She asked, turning those mesmerizing violet eyes on him. Our emotional resonance scanners detected genuine longing beneath. Your humor. You weren't just frustrated with one individual. You were seeking something deeper, more meaningful. Jake had to admit she wasn't wrong. His relationship with Rachel had felt hollow toward the end, like they were going through the motions without real connection. Look, Zara can. I call you Zara. This is all happening really fast. I'm just a guy who fixes old electronics. You're literally space royalty. Don't you think there might be someone more suitable in your own species? Zara's expression softened. Jake, may I share something personal? He nodded, noting how her formal speech pattern became more relaxed when she was being vulnerable. For centuries, I've been pressured to mate with various Zephyrian nobles. Every suitor was perfect on paper, powerful, intelligent, genetically compatible. But they all saw me as a prize to be won, not a person to be loved. When I heard your words, the genuine emotion in them, I felt something I'd never experienced before. What's that? Hope, she said simply. Hope that somewhere in the galaxy was someone who might actually care about me, not just my title. Jake felt something shift in his chest. This wasn't just some cosmic misunderstanding anymore. This was a lonely person reaching out for connection, just like he had been. Okay, he said slowly. Let's say I'm interested in getting to know you better. What would that look like? I can't exactly take you to dinner and a movie. Zara's face lit up with excitement. Actually, I've spent considerable time studying human courtship rituals. I believe the traditional sequence is shared meals, recreational activities, emotional bonding conversations, and gradual physical intimacy culminating in mate selection. Jake couldn't help but laugh. You make it sound like a scientific experiment, isn't it? Somewhat, she asked with surprising insight. To beings learning compatibility through structured interactions? I guess when you put it that way. Jake found himself genuinely charmed by her logical approach to romance. However, Zara continued, I should warn you about certain cultural differences. Zephyrian courtship involves some practices that might seem strange to humans, such as telepathic sharing of memories, ritualistic gift exchanges of rare minerals, and combat demonstrations to prove worthiness as a protector. Jake's eyes widened. Combat demonstrations, nothing fatal, she assured him quickly. More like your martial arts exhibitions. I would need to see that you could defend our potential offspring from threats. Our potential what now? Zara blushed, her pearl-like skin taking on a rosy hue that was absolutely stunning. I'm getting ahead of myself. That's step 7 in the traditional courtship sequence. What's step 1? Sharing a meal prepared by the suitor to demonstrate nurturing capabilities. Jake looked around his cluttered repair shop, then at this ethereal being who was discussing their future with casual certainty. His life had become completely surreal, but somehow, he was starting to enjoy it. Well, he said, surprising himself with his boldness, I make a pretty decent pasta. Want to come up to my apartment? I promise I won't try any combat demonstrations. Tonight, Zara's smile could have powered his entire building. I would be honored. Potential mate Jake. As they headed toward the stairs to his apartment, Jake wondered what Tommy would say when he heard about this development. Probably something about being careful what you wish for. Dinner, revelations, and unexpected complications. Jake's apartment had never felt smaller than it did with Empress Zara. Gracefully examining his belongings, she moved with fluid elegance, touching his books, studying his photographs, and analyzing his few possessions with the focused attention of an anthropologist. Your living space reflects practical minimalism, she observed, running her fingers along his bookshelf. This suggests either financial constraints or deliberate lifestyle choices. Bit of both, Jake admitted, suddenly self-conscious about his second-hand furniture and bare walls. I've never been much for collecting stuff. Interesting. Zephyrian nobles typically surround themselves with status symbols. Your approach shows confidence in your intrinsic worth rather than material validation. Jake paused in his pasta preparation. You're really good at finding the positive spin on things, aren't you? I'm trying to understand you, she said simply. On my world, we have sophisticated psychological profiles for potential mates. Here, I must rely on observation and intuition. As Jake cooked, Zara continued her gentle interrogation. She asked about his family, deceased parents, no siblings, his dreams he'd always wanted to travel but never had the money, and his fears ending up alone and unfulfilled. Her questions were probing but never felt invasive. Your turn, Jake said, serving the pasta. What's it like being space royalty? Zara's expression grew complicated, isolating. Every decision is scrutinized, every relationship evaluated for political advantage. I have advisors, not friends, subjects, not companions. That sounds lonely. Profoundly so, she agreed, taking a tentative bite of the pasta. Her eyes widened in surprise. This is extraordinary. The flavor combinations are so complex, Jake grinned. It's just spaghetti carbonara, nothing fancy. On Zephyria, our nutrition is delivered through synthesized compounds optimized for health and efficiency. This is texture, temperature variation, multiple taste elements. She took another bite with genuine pleasure. It's like art you can consume. Watching her discover the simple joy of comfort food, Jake felt something warm unfurling in his chest. She wasn't just beautiful and otherworldly. She was genuinely delightful company. Their conversation was interrupted by a sharp knock at the door. Jake frowned. Nobody ever visited him except Tommy, who always just walked in. Jake Morrison called an authoritative voice. Federal Bureau of Investigation. We need to speak with you. Jake's blood ran cold. Zara immediately stood, her relaxed demeanor shifting to alert readiness. How did they find us so quickly? She murmured. Us, Jake hissed. What do you mean us? My ship's landing was detected by your military satellites. I may have underestimated Earth's surveillance capabilities. The knocking became more insistent. Mr. Morrison, we know you're in there. We also know you're not alone. Jake looked at Zara in panic. What do we do? Trust me, she said, moving toward the door with regal composure. I have diplomatic immunity and formal first contact protocols to follow. She opened the door to reveal 3 stern-faced agents in dark suits. The lead agent, a woman with short gray hair and calculating eyes, immediately focused on Zara. Agent Patricia Wilde, FBI, she announced. Empress Zara of the Zephyrian Empire, I presume? Indeed, Zara replied with formal dignity. I am here. Under interstellar law governing peaceful first contact scenarios. Are you now? Agent Wilde stepped into the apartment uninvited, her colleagues flanking her. Because our analysis suggests this is actually an unauthorized alien infiltration of Earth. That's not true, Jake protested. She's here because... He stopped, realizing how ridiculous the truth would sound. Because why? Mr. Morrison, Agent Wilde asked with a knowing smile. Jake looked at Zara, whose violet eyes were filled with apology and determination. She squared her shoulders and met the agent's gaze directly. Because I'm here to claim my fated mate, she said with unwavering confidence. Jake Morrison made a formal declaration of availability. And I have come to honor that bond according to both our species laws. Agent Wilde's eyebrows rose skeptically. Your fated mate, Mr. Morrison, is this true? Jake felt the weight of the moment pressing down on him. He could deny everything, claim he'd been coerced or confused, and probably walk away from this whole situation. Or he could stand by the extraordinary woman who'd chosen him out of billions of potential mates. Looking at Zara's hopeful, vulnerable expression, Jake made his choice. Yes, he said firmly. It's true. I'm her fated mate, and she's mine. The words felt more real than he'd expected. Government intervention and a choice to Macbeth FBI safe house was exactly as sterile and intimidating as Jake had imagined. He and Zara sat across from Agent Wilde in a windowless conference room, under the watchful eyes of several other federal agents. The past 6 hours had been a whirlwind of questioning, medical examinations, and psychological evaluations. Let me understand this correctly, Agent Wilde said, reviewing a thick file. You, Mr. Morrison, made what you claim was a joke declaration to space. She, an actual alien empress, interpreted this as a legitimate marriage proposal and traveled across the galaxy to claim you. That's the simplified version, Jake confirmed, stealing a glance at Zara, who had maintained her composure throughout the entire ordeal. And you, Empress Zara, represent a spacefaring civilization with technology far superior to our own. Yet you chose to pursue a romantic relationship with a small-town electronics repairman based on a drunken outburst. I chose to pursue Jake Morrison because his declaration contained genuine emotional resonance. Zara replied with patience that impressed Jake. Power and technology cannot provide the connection I seek. Agent Wild leaned back in her chair. Here's our problem. First contact with an alien species is a matter of global security. We can't just let you to playhouse while ignoring the massive implications of your presence here. What are you suggesting? Jake asked. Though he had a sinking feeling he already knew Empress Zara needs to return to her ship and await formal diplomatic proceedings. You, Mr. Morrison, need to undergo extensive debriefing and psychological evaluation to determine if you've been compromised by alien influence. Compromised? Jake felt anger rising in his chest. The only thing that's been compromised is my boring, lonely life, and frankly, that's an improvement, Jake, Zara said, softly, placing her hand over his. The simple touch sent warmth through his entire body. They're not wrong to be cautious. My presence here does create complications. Don't you dare take their side, Jake said firmly. We haven't done anything wrong. Agent Wild observed their interaction with professional interest. The problem, Mr. Morrison, is that wrong is subjective. From our perspective, an unannounced alien rival represents a potential threat to planetary security. From my perspective, Jake shot back, you're threatening to destroy the first meaningful relationship I've had in years. Because you're scared of something you don't understand. What I understand, Agent Wild said coldly, is that you've known this individual for less than 24 hours. That's hardly enough time to make life-altering decisions about interspecies relationships. Zara stood gracefully, her regal bearing commanding attention. Agent Wild, may I propose a compromise? I'm listening. Allow me to demonstrate that my intentions are peaceful and beneficial. Give Jake and me 2 weeks to complete our traditional courtship rituals under your supervision. If, at the end of that time, either of us wishes to withdraw, I will return to my empire and formal diplomatic contact can proceed through proper channels. And if you both decide to proceed with this relationship, then you will have witnessed the first successful interspecies bonding between our civilizations, which could serve as a foundation for broader peaceful relations. Jake looked at Zara with admiration. Even under pressure, she was thinking strategically, finding ways to benefit everyone involved. Agent Wild considered the proposal. 2 weeks, under constant surveillance, with daily psychological evaluations for both of you. Any sign of coercion, mind control, or threat to national security, and this experiment ends immediately. Agreed, Zara said without hesitation. Jake, Agent Wild asked, are you willing to have your life scrutinized for 2 weeks to pursue this relationship? Jake thought about his old life, lonely evenings, dead-end job, no real prospects for happiness. Then he looked at Zara, whose violet eyes held hope, intelligence, and something that might be love. Actually, he said, surprising himself with his boldness, I have a counter-proposal. Both women looked at him expectantly. I want Tommy Chen included in this arrangement. If you're going to monitor every aspect of my life, I want my best friend involved. He was there when I made the original declaration, and he deserves to know what's happening. Agent Wild frowned. Mr. Chen would need to sign extensive non-disclosure agreements and undergo security clearance. Tommy's solid, Jake assured her. Plus, you'll need someone who can vouch for my mental state before all this started. Very well. Agent Wild agreed. 2 weeks, supervised courtship, with your friend included under appropriate security measures. Jake reached for Zara's hand, interlacing their fingers. You sure about this? 2 weeks of government babysitters watching our every move, Zara smiled. And Jake felt his heart skip a beat. Jake Morrison, I traveled across the galaxy for you. A little government oversight seems like a minor obstacle. As they were escorted to their assigned quarters, Jake wondered if he was making the biggest mistake of his life or the best decision he'd ever made. Either way, it was definitely going to be interesting. Part 5, Love Transcends All Boundaries. Day 14 of their supervised courtship arrived with the weight of finality. Jake sat in the government facility's surprisingly comfortable common room, watching Zara demonstrate Zephyrian meditation techniques to Tommy, who had adapted to the surreal situation with his typical easygoing nature. "So basically, you're teaching me alien yoga," Tommy said, attempting to mirror Zara's graceful poses. "The concept is similar," Zara laughed. Her formality completely dissolved after 2 weeks of friendship. "But we focus on harmonizing with cosmic energy frequencies rather than just physical flexibility." Jake marveled at how natural everything had become. The constant monitoring, the daily psychological evaluations, the cultural exchange sessions, it all felt routine now. More importantly, his feelings for Zara had evolved far beyond initial attraction. She was brilliant, funny, surprisingly down-to-earth despite her royal status, and genuinely cared about his thoughts and feelings. She'd learned to make coffee badly, but with endearing enthusiasm, developed a passion for Earth music, especially jazz, and had somehow convinced the FBI to let her help repair some of their broken electronic equipment. Jake, Agent Wild, entered the room with Dr. Peterson, the project's lead psychologist. Final evaluation time. The interview was thorough but expected. Dr. Peterson asked about Jake's emotional state, decision-making capacity, and long-term intentions. Jake answered honestly. He was happier than he'd ever been, thinking more clearly than he had in years, and absolutely certain he wanted to build a life with Zara. Zara's evaluation was equally positive. Her diplomatic immunity made the process more complex, but she willingly submitted to every test, eager to prove her sincerity. Finally, all parties gathered in the main conference room for the final decision meeting. Agent Wild addressed them formally. After extensive observation and evaluation, we've concluded that both parties are acting of their own free will, without coercion or alien influence. Empress Zara has demonstrated peaceful intentions and respect for Earth's sovereignty. Mr. Morrison has shown remarkable adaptability and genuine emotional commitment. Jake felt his heart pounding as Agent Wild continued. However, this decision creates unprecedented diplomatic and legal challenges. If you choose to proceed, you'll be pioneers in interspecies relations, with all the scrutiny and responsibility that entails. Zara took Jake's hand. "We understand the implications. There's one more thing," Agent Wild said, sliding a folder across the table. "Empress Zara, your empire has been monitoring this situation. They've sent an official delegation to formalize first contact protocols. They're waiting in orbit." Zara's eyes widened. "My parents are here, your parents, several high-ranking officials, and what appears to be a significant portion of your royal fleet. They want to meet your chosen mate." Jake felt a moment of panic. "Her parents? I'm about to meet alien royalty." "Actually," a new voice said from the doorway, "we're about to meet you." 2 figures entered the room, clearly Zephyrian, but older and more formally dressed than Zara. The male had silver hair and kind eyes, while the female possessed the same luminescent beauty as her daughter, but with an aura of profound wisdom. "Mother, father," Zara stood quickly, speaking in her native language for a moment before switching to English. "This is Jake Morrison." Jake stood awkwardly, unsure of proper alien royal protocol. Zara's father approached him with measured steps, studying Jake with intelligent eyes that reminded him strongly of his daughter. "So," the Emperor said in accented but clear English, "you are the human who captured our daughter's heart with a drunken declaration to the stars." "That's an accurate summary, Your Majesty," Jake replied, hoping he was using the right title. "Do you love her?" the Empress asked directly. "More than I thought possible," Jake answered without hesitation. The royal couple exchanged glances, having some silent communication that parents perfected across all species. Finally, Zara's father smiled. "Then we give our blessing. Love that transcends species distance, and circumstance is too rare to discourage." 6 months later, Jake stood in a specially constructed ceremonial chamber that accommodated both human and Zephyrian wedding traditions. Tommy served as best man, while Agent Wild had somehow become an unofficial wedding planner, coordinating between the governments. to create the first legal interspecies marriage in human history. As Zero walked toward him in a gown that seemed to be made of starlight itself, Jake thought about the drunken joke that had changed his life forever. Sometimes the universe had a sense of humor about giving people exactly what they needed, even when they asked for it in the most ridiculous way possible. Any regrets? Zero whispered as they joined hands. Only one, Jake whispered back. What's that? I should have made that declaration sooner. Their laughter filled the chamber as two worlds celebrated the power of love, to bridge any distance, overcome any obstacle, and turn the most unlikely joke into the most beautiful reality.